What happened?
We lost her.
Oh, we lost Sheila?
And we're live.
We are.
Happy fucking Monday.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We lost Sheila in the live connection and she's coming right back in. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Here we are again, another week. We're going to do something a little different today, but before we do, let's just check in and see how everybody is over the weekend. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm Kim Wilkinson. I'm here with my co-hosts, Tracy Montgomery and Sheila Shorten. So Sheila, let's check in with you first. How was your weekend?
My weekend was really fun. I taught like a crazy amount of yoga this weekend. So I really focused on that. I did a bunch of channeling sessions as well. So my energy was full on. I was in the zone of healing and yoga. So I never dislike doing that. It's always a fun thing, but I'm ready to chill now. I'm ready to have more of a relaxed day today for sure.
Awesome. I love it. Tracy, how about you?
Mine was kind of the same, actually. I wasn't teaching yoga, but
what happened? Oh, there we go. Now we can. Couldn't hear you at first, but you're good now.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
I've got the garbage truck is like outside my house. So hopefully it's all being muffled. Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Sheila. I had a really busy weekend in my business, and today is more of like now I can chill out day. So I'm looking forward to that because there was a lot of moving parts on the weekend. So, which was great. It was all super awesome, but yes, I'm ready for a bit more of a chill day myself. I agree with that. On May 1st, I think that's a perfect time to start to chill. And Sheila, did you get your glasses?
Yeah, I always have different ones. These are like from the dollar store, you know, those reading ones you get.
They look really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love it. That is awesome. I love it. It's May 1st. Yeah, that's hard to believe. Wow. My weekend was great. It was pretty low key. I taught a bit of yoga as well. We got to visit with our grandson, which was fun, and did a bit of yard work and got outside. The weather is so nice. I'm loving it. It's supposed to be nice all week. So good weather means we're all happy, right?
Yay.
Mm-hmm. All right. And hopefully everybody who's watching. Oh,
you know what we forgot? The Oilers won.
Oh, yeah.
They did.
They did.
I'm not a huge hockey fan. Are you guys hockey fans?
I like it.
I was when my kids played, but you know what? There's just so many things to do and enjoy in life. How do you do them all at the same time? So it kind of fell down on my list, but it's always, you know what I love about hockey and playoffs is during that time, for the most part, it brings people together. You know, I mean, sometimes shitty things happen too, and people get a little bit crazy, but for the most part, people come together, you know, they're high-fiving each other. They don't know each other. They're getting along. It's great. It's a nice momentum and a nice energy that's created. I just wish that after it was done, we could carry that as a community and a society. We tend to lose it quickly, but it's amazing how sports and playoffs can bring people together with a place of commonality and acceptance and just fun. Yeah.
Not only has it been a week of hockey, but it was also the NFL draft, because that's like Christmas in my house. So forget hockey. It's like the NFL draft was where it's at. Days of the NFL draft. I can't even tell you. And watching these kids, these young kids, these young men, I guess I should say, they're kids to me, but they're actually men. But, you know, they get drafted and they're like so emotional. And I get it. I'm not saying it as a criticism, but like just to watch it on TV and to see them like tears streaming down and, you know, hugging the family and all of these things. It's like, you know, that one announcement made all of their dreams come true, right? It's actually pretty cool to watch, even if you're not a football fan.
Well, that would be really cool. It'd be cool to have someone like that as a guest. So if anybody's watching who has been through that or has a family member that is, reach out to us because come on our show and tell us about your experience.
Yeah,
that would be super cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of guests, we have some great guests that we're lining up to bring ahead. We're not going to tell you just yet. We'll keep an eye on the Facebook page. We're going to let you know. We're going to do it a little bit differently, though. We are live Monday mornings. However, that doesn't always work for guests. So we are a little bit flexible, and we're going to be pre-recording some of our shows with guests and airing them still on the Monday mornings at 9:30. So keep your eyes and ears open for that, because there is some great guests coming. We're going to have some good conversations. I'm really excited about some of them. It's going to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is something that Sheila and I have done on our podcast a couple of times, and it's a lot of fun. It's interesting, and it always leads to a good conversation. And basically, it starts with us not even knowing what the hell we're going to talk about, because we actually turn to the cards. So we just trust Spirit to give us a topic to discuss today. So I have the Soul's Journey deck. I really like this deck. I call this the deck of truth, because it's very, I will say, upfront in your face, sometimes very clear. And as cards always do, they really tell us or show us what we need to know or focus on. And basically, the three of us are going to share our different views and perceptions on what the card means. So I'm going to give these a shuffle. And I'm just going to always cut the deck in half and take the top card. That's my thing. Whoops. So, this is a good one. I love it. Guilt. Okay, so it says, I release any beliefs that no longer assist in my soul's growth. And I bet that almost everybody has, and maybe even still is, carrying some form of guilt. So Sheila, I'm going to go to you first. When you see that card, what comes up for you? What do you think of?
I think of a waste of time. It is a huge waste of time. And it's so interesting because it comes up a lot in the channels. So the other person from the other side will come in and give the other person, so I'm doing a reading between the past person and the person that's still here. And the person that's passed always brings a message, not always, but quite often brings a message about letting them off the hook because they're carrying this guilt. I should have been there at your bedside. I should have phoned you more. I should have done all these things. And there's all this guilt that they're carrying. And the person on the other side always comes in such a unique way for each person. It's not always the same way, but the message is always the same: is what are you doing wasting your time in guilt? Because the person that's passed has full understanding, clear vision of everything. They know the amount of love you have for them. They know exactly your feelings, and they know everything that you offered to them, and everything that you didn't was not on purpose. It was done because of where you were in your circumstances in life. And they understand that. The other side has clear vision of that. So I would say the big takeaway from guilt is wasting your time. And I'm not going to suggest that I don't still have guilt, because I do. But every time I do a reading for a client where that comes in, it resonates more and more with me. What a huge opportunity for me not to have guilt in my life, because I can see clearly how it does not serve me. It doesn't serve the person on the other side. So now keep in mind, the person on the other side is engaged in who you are and what you're doing. They don't want you to be suffering and in guilt. So you're doing the opposite of what they would like. They want love. They want love for you just as you want love for them. So if their death caused you to have guilt and suffering, that's the last thing that they would ever want. So that's just my take on guilt.
I love that. Thank you. Tracy.
This is a big one. Like, I feel like, this always comes up in some way, shape, or form with almost everyone that I work with. And I feel like guilt is one of these, we could call it conditions or pieces of programming that we really adopt or we install to use to keep us small. That's kind of how I see it. And I had a teacher, I remember this is one of the most profound things that I ever heard. And this would be going back now, like over a decade. She was one of my first mentors. And I remember I was actually talking about guilt. I was talking about parent guilt. And she had said to me, what is guilt? that's such a powerful question. And I'll ask that with my clients too, because beyond the idea of, well, it's an emotion, a lot of people often get stuck. They're like, okay, it's an emotion. I know it feels shitty. And what is it? Right. And the best definition that I ever heard was from my mentor. And she said, guilt is when you have a belief and a behavior that are not in alignment with each other. Right. So even if I just use an easy example of like mom guilt, right? My belief is that I should do X, Y, Z, because that is what might make me a good mom, right? Or a good wife or whatever that is. But my behavior is otherwise. So, you know, I have a belief that I should be at home every night for my kids, but my behavior is I go to a yoga class, right? So now I have two opposing energies, which is then creating this experience of guilt. And I feel like it's one of those things that we often use to keep us safe and to keep us small. And when we can get past the guilt to see what's on the other side of that, which is expansion for self. And when we expand ourselves, we also, you know, that creates a ripple effect for everyone else. And so that ripple effect is essentially what, you know, is our service to the world in a way, right? Because we're not serving anybody when we're staying small. So I feel like guilt is one of those things that we use to keep us kind of, you know, within the parameters of where we are supposed to be, maybe, if that's the right way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard it or who I heard it from, but there was a point a while ago, a couple of years ago, where I heard the, you know, kind of, I guess, basically the definition of guilt is with intention to cause harm.
Mm.
And, you know, typically people do not wake up and say, I'm going to intend to cause some harm today. Right? Nobody does that. And speaking to the parent guilt, I mean, I'm the first one to say, if I knew 25 years ago what I know now, I would have done things way different. Mm-hmm. Do I have guilt? No. Do I have regret? Yes. And there's a big difference, right? First of all, when I was raising my kids, I did what I thought was right. I did it with love, but I can see where I could have done things a lot differently. For those who maybe don't know, my son Tristan died of overdose in 2019. So that brought up a lot of emotion where, you know, guilt surfaced. But I chose to lean more into regret than guilt, because I believe in regret, that's where we find the lesson and the opportunity to grow. Guilt is where we just punish ourselves and then we suffer in that. So that was life-changing for me to be able to understand. And I always remind myself of that, you know, guilt is with intention to cause harm. I've never intended to cause harm, so I have nothing to feel guilty about. Do I have regrets, or can I have regrets? Absolutely. And I can learn from those. That's what makes me a better person, right? When you know better, you do better. So there's so much growth in that. So for me, it's about shifting that word, is shifting that energy, and then forgiving myself. Right? Forgiveness of self is something I think we can all do. And, you know, if we want to create and attract an abundant life, we know we have to be in a high energy. And if you're familiar with the emotional scale, guilt is very low on the emotional scale. So we're not doing ourselves any favor by holding on to guilt. Interesting stuff.
I'm reminded of the law of attraction. And if any of you follow Esther or Abraham, the channeling of Abraham, one of the things that Esther speaks to is whenever something feels out of alignment, like you feel uncomfortable, your body feels, guilt would make you feel uncomfortable. It means you're going against yourself. Your true nature is love, compassion, and joy. And anytime you go against that true nature, you know that you're out of alignment. So if you experience the feeling of guilt, what does that feel like? It feels out of alignment. So you're going against yourself. Your true nature would never feel guilty or have to feel guilty, because your true nature knows only love and compassion and joy.
Yeah. I feel like too, when we talk about guilt, you know, it's often attached to, like there's also often another piece there. So there's perhaps an expectation, right? Whether we have it of ourselves or it's coming from someone else, or there's an assumption, or there's a projection, or there's a point of view that is often anchored in with that guilt that is then in effect causing the emotion, if we want to call it that, in and of itself. So if we can look past the feeling of guilt and look at, okay, well, what is this about? Well, I have this expectation that I should do this, or this person has an expectation of me, or they have projected onto me that I should do this, right? And then that is kind of where the guilt happens. So if we can look at the projections, the expectations, the assumptions, and the points of view, and start to, come in, like Sheila said, more into alignment with those, then I feel like there's less opportunity to even have the experience of guilt in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for anybody who's watching, even if you're not feeling like you have guilt, check in with yourself, because it's amazing how we can hold on to stuff and not realize we do. So maybe take that opportunity to sit, whether it's in meditation or just sit in silence or be out in nature, and ask yourself, am I feeling guilty? Your body will tell you right away. And if you are, what are you feeling guilty about? And can you change that into, what is my regret? Right? What can I let go of? What can I learn? What can I accept and let go of? And free yourself from that guilt. Forgive yourself for holding on to it. Tracy, anything you could suggest for people who might be experiencing some guilt and how to release it?
I love clearing statements. That's often what I use. So that's a tool that I always really lean on. But I think even before you get to the clearing statements, the first step is the awareness piece, right? We can never clear and release anything that we're not aware of in the first place. So it's really looking at, okay, what is this for me? Where is this coming from, right? Is it attached to anybody else? Like sometimes it's as simple as just having a conversation with somebody, right? And saying like, these are the things I'm willing to do. These are the things that are not, setting some boundaries, looking at expectations, whatever that is, right? Like we're very interesting as humans too, because we like to create narratives, right? We like to create stories. And often those stories aren't even necessarily the truth, right? It's just our own perception or our own point of view. So even just sometimes having a conversation with someone else, you'll find that through that conversation, they never actually expected that of you in the first place, right? And then there's just such a sense of freedom and liberation from just having that awareness and being willing to speak it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sheila, what would you tell anybody who's struggling with some guilt?
Well, I think Tracy really articulated that really well, of how to release and awareness and all that, coming to that place, and also just offering yourself the freedom to know that anytime you're in a state that doesn't align up with your true nature, there's always an opportunity to go back to your true nature. Mm-hmm. So if it's guilt or whatever feeling is coming across and it doesn't feel good, find your tools, find your yoga, find your breath, find your meditation, find your time with Tracy or Kim or myself, where we'll, sit and talk to you, or find your friend to talk to you about it, because there is always an opportunity to go back to your true nature. Absolutely.
I love that. And again, ask yourself, did I intend to cause harm? Chances are no. So there's nothing to feel guilty about, right? All right, let's do one more. I love these. All right, shuffling again.
We need to have like a little sound, like a magic whoop or something.
Adversity. This is another great one. So I accept that challenges are the best way to learn. Yeah, I forget who went first last time.
Sheila
did. Tracy, you get to go first this time.
Just kidding. I accept that challenges are the best way to learn. I mean, from a spiritual perspective, that's essentially why we're here, right? We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we're coming here to have these experiences in order to know what they are like, right? As spiritual beings, because when we're not in this body and on this plane, it's not the same, right? And part of that is understanding that we're here to experience all of it. Right. And sometimes we get really caught up in, we only should be experiencing the good things, or we only want to experience the good things. And yeah, I totally get it, because it's easier and it feels good and all these things. Right. But it's in the contrast that we really learn our lessons. right? It's in the contrast, which, you know, are the challenges and the struggles, the opposite of what we want and what is positive sometimes, that we really find out how, as humans, how resilient we really are, right? And that can be physically, right? It could be a physical thing we're moving through. It can be mental. It can be a mindset. It can be energetic, and it can also be spiritual, right? But that is where the growth happens, and it's in the growth that we evolve as spiritual beings. So without the adversity, without the challenges, without the growth, then we are simply in a state of stagnancy and in a state of complacency, maybe is the right word. So for me, you know, I remember before my spiritual journey, adversity to me was always like, let's avoid it at all costs, right? Let's avoid what's hard. Let's avoid the challenge. Let's avoid the struggle, whether that's a conversation or a choice or whatever that is, right? Because often there's a lot of those negative emotions attached to that. There's fear, there's the guilt, there's blame, there's shame, there's all of these things. But I strongly believe that part of our purpose, part of everyone's purpose on this planet, is to be able to walk through the fire, is to be able to have those experiences and to come out the side, or the other side, sorry. I don't want to say necessarily, I mean, it is better in a way, but it's more evolved. It's more multidimensional on so many different levels, right? So to me, adversity is really about leaning in rather than leaning out.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sheila?
Kim and I were talking before we started today about embodying experiences. And I think that's the most powerful thing about adversity, is that you can know something in your mind. You can actually understand it logically. But when you embody it and understand it from that perspective, there's no mistake that you got the lesson. Embodying something versus knowing something. And I always liken that to my experience of losing everything. So having, from one day having not everything, but having, myself comfortable, and then the next day being super uncomfortable, having no money, knowing I wasn't going to have a place to live, all these different things that came up for me. And I can't, since that experience, not know that I'm supported, because when I had nothing, everything came to me. It was so bizarre and so powerful and so exciting that I can't not know that we are supported. So when I hear people say, I don't have enough money, or I wish I had more of this or that, and I'm like, okay, but I have this understanding that it'll come. Anything you need will come to you. And I can't not know that. So that's something that I really, if someone said to me, would you want to lose everything again, but not have the lesson? I would say, no, I want the lesson. And I would say that emphatically. I would absolutely say that. Of course, hindsight is 50-50. I don't want to do that lesson again because I've learned it. But I think that I would absolutely go through that again to know what I know, because I see people with all kinds of money, all kinds of wealth, all kinds of love and beautiful children and families and all this beautiful abundance they have in their life, and they don't know it. They don't appreciate it. They don't understand it. And I think because I lost everything, and I don't encourage you to do that way. I encourage you to find a different way to find this lesson. I would say that I have this real wisdom about how abundant we really are, with or without any money.
I love that. Such a great, inspiring story to your story. So thank you. For me, when I really am drawn to like the sentence, I accept that challenges are the best way to learn. I definitely was that person. I think like Tracy said, like avoid, distract, like don't deal with anything, just sweep it under the rug. And it took me a long time, but I learned that's not how it works, right? I mean, everything is changing. We talked, I think, about impermanence on one of our last shows. Everything is always changing, and we're either in the flow or we're resistant. And that's where adversity is being in the flow and accepting those challenges. And I know today, it even still sounds weird to say, but I get really excited when challenges show up or when things get yucky. And because it is the opportunity, right? It's the opportunity for me to become more aware, or to be a better person, or to respond differently. And I still don't get it right all the time. I can have regrets, like we were talking about before, after thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I could have said this differently, or done something differently. But that's where I learn. That's where I have the chance to get better, to become wiser, to make a different choice next time. So I have so much gratitude and excitement for the discomforts that show up now. I mean, do we wake up and say, oh yeah, can't wait for discomforts today? No, but they're going to happen. So if we can approach them with a more positive and welcoming, appreciative energy and attitude, we're going to grow through them faster, rather than being in that resistance and having them show up again and again and again, because they're going to keep showing up, right, until we get it. So if we can just let go of the resistance and be in the flow, we are going to come out, ahead much quicker. It's my experience anyway.
And, I would say to add to that too, like I don't think most of us realize how powerful we really are and what we are actually capable of until we're in the face of some adversity. And sometimes we choose it, right? Sometimes it's that goal or that thing that we're reaching for, that we're striving for, and we get on the other side and we're like, holy shit, I actually did that, right? I just had that experience this weekend. It was like, I didn't know if I could do it, but I, believed I could do it, and I did it, right? But on the other side of that, it was like, done, Tracy, well done, and there's a feeling that comes with that. There's an energy that comes with that, right? And sometimes we also are faced with adversity that we're not choosing, because it's not necessarily a goal that we're trying to achieve or a new place that we're trying to get to, right? It almost feels like it chooses us in a way, even though I think we are the co-creators of our life and we actually choose everything, right? But that can still have that same outcome, right? Where we're in the thick of it for a while. And yes, it's uncomfortable, and yes, it's hard. And yes, it's, fatiguing or emotionally draining or whatever those things are, right? But nothing is permanent. So at some point we will come to the other side of that, and things will shift and things will be different.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes me think too about, we are these beings in this quantum field where everything is accessible to us, absolutely everything. And if we keep ourselves in this little bubble, how can we ever access those things? We have to be continuously expanding, right? And that's how we do that, is through adversity. Otherwise, how boring is life going to be?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. But I can relate, because I remember being stuck there too. It's easy to just stay stuck in your little bubble because everything is good and safe. And, it's very common. I think a lot of people get stuck in that, but it's a false sense of safety.
Mm.
I think it's a false sense of being in control and a false sense of strength, right? You gotta expand that bubble. You have to become expansive and continue to be expansive, and go through those little bumps along the way. Have those regrets. Notice when the guilt surfaces and change that energy, right? To more of a lesson and growth, and accept the adversity, accept the challenge, right? We've often talked about challenges or opportunities rather than challenges being this bad thing. We've been conditioned, again, like Tracy talked about, these belief systems, right? We're taught that challenges are bad. No, they're a great opportunity. So we should welcome them.
It's also one of those things, like, let's be honest, as humans, when we're not in it, we're always like, yeah, they're great, they're for growth, but then when we're in it, we're like, oh, Jesus, and so there is that aspect of it too. And that's part of being human, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know when I get stuck in that, I mean, everybody has different beliefs, and I have a belief that I do believe that before we come onto this planet, we've decided, who we're going to be in family with, what we're going to experience, what we're going to do, that sort of thing. So when shit's hitting the fan, I now tend to say, okay, why did I choose to have this experience? What was the purpose or the intention for it? So that I can maybe go into it with more openness and try to figure out the why behind it, rather than just what the F, right? So Tracy, what do you do? when you're right in the thick of it?
I think for me, part of it is just the reminder that, it's that saying, like, this too shall pass, right? This too shall pass. And with all the past life work that I do as well, I have the very same belief system as you, Kim, right? It's like, I chose this, right? So it's like, what is the lesson, excuse me, what is the lesson I need to learn, or what is it that I need to acknowledge or see, or whatever that is, right? And start to take a look at that. And, interestingly enough, I'm not sure why, but my human design, like learning about my human design, has actually become a really big comfort in that, from the perspective of I'm a generator. And as a generator, and it's a generalization, of course, but most generators will experience highs and lows. So they are the people that have like almost the roller coaster type pattern when it comes to experiences in their life. And so because of that, they'll go up and they'll rise and they'll get really high, and then they'll start to come back down. But when they get to that low, there's this knowing that you're on the precipice of something really big, right? That when you're going through the muck, what's on the other side is actually a huge expansion, a glass ceiling being shattered, a huge growth, whatever that looks like. And knowing that, I was able to actually kind of go back in my timeline and take a look at that and be like, oh yeah, because this really hard thing happened in my life, and then this, and then this really hard thing happened in my life, and then this, and I was able to go back and look at that pattern for myself. And so it's almost like it sounds bizarre, I know, but it's kind of a bit of a self-soothing for me, because I know that when I'm in the muck, so to speak, in those times, it's just like the lotus flower, right? When I'm in the muck, I know that eventually I'm going to come out and there's going to be a full blossom, right? And so it took me a while to get there, but now I there's a part of me, even when it's hard, that is actually really excited to see what's going to be on the other side, because I know, and I have the evidence, in the past that shows me that seems to always be my pattern.
Yeah, I love that. Really quick before I go to Sheila, you just made me think of something too. And actually, Sheila alluded to it before about the whole law of attraction thing. I think sometimes it's also an opportunity when we're in the thick of it to go, okay, what did I maybe do or say to attract this to myself? Because that could also be a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you're worrying about, all of a sudden it shows up. Well, you brought it in, you called it in, right? So that could be something too.
Totally. The responsibility piece, right? Because we can go one of two ways. I can go, okay, well, this shitty thing is happening. It must be my husband's fault, or it must be so-and-so's fault, or it must be, the universe. I've totally been in the space where I've been like, I've been abandoned by spirit. The universe doesn't give a shit about me. Like, I've gone through all of those things, and I totally get it at the time. Right. And in those moments, even not understanding or not realizing, and, this is a analogy that comes up quite a bit when I'm in session with clients who have that same kind of story running, is there's this, I can't remember if it's like a psalm or a scripture. It's some point of scripture, and it's in the Catholic and Christian, and it's called Footprints. And you'll often find it like in gift shops and things like that. And you'll see it as there's this like picture often of like footprints in the sand. And the very short version of the story is that there's this man, and he's praying and he's speaking to God. And he says, I've devoted my life, and I've prayed, and I've done all these things to be, a good Catholic or good Christian or whatever. And when I've done those things, I've always seen two sets of footprints in the sand, one for me and one for you. But why is it in times of struggle, when I've needed you the most, and when I've been suffering and I've prayed to you, there's only ever one set of footprints? Why would you abandon me in my time of need? And God's response to that is, you were a child of God. And in those times when you were struggling, I never abandoned you. I was actually carrying you. And that is one of the things that has always really stuck with me. Like, I'm not huge. I was raised Catholic. I'm not huge into any of that per se, but that's also been a huge reminder for me too, is that when things are really, really hard, that's when I'm actually supported even more, if I'm willing to receive it.
Yeah. And I think the key is to trust it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sheila, anything you want to add?
The immersion of both, the immersion of the challenge and the success after, knowing that there's both, I guess. One thing that I do is I don't like being uncomfortable. I'm very adverse to feeling not good. I like to go about my day in joy. I like to go about my day with a smile on my face and non-harming, basically. And non-harming meaning not I'm going to harm others. I'm not going to harm myself. So when I get in those states of difficulty and I find myself in adversity or some challenge, I pick up the phone. I call a friend, just like they do on, I think it's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that. You pick up the phone. You don't know what to do. You don't know the answer. Call a friend, call someone, do something. Because what I know from the age of 59, where I'm at, if I don't do something, maybe it'll subside, but it'll come back. The same thing will come back, because whatever that is that's causing me discomfort needs to be resolved. And I think in my younger years, I would just project that onto others. Oh, someone did this to me. I would try to project my feelings and my discomfort because someone did something to me. And perhaps they did, but it was my response to what they were doing that caused me the discomfort. So the more I become aware of my discomfort and become aware of the real truth of my discomfort, and that means that I don't just distort the story, and I keep the story clear, and I understand exactly what that story is, and I don't project it onto the other, there's an opportunity for me not to have that same discomfort come back. And day after day, if you do that, it's a real empowering experience. It's an opportunity to get really clear on it. And the reason that we don't do this, and the reason that I didn't like to do it, is because I don't like to feel like I've done something wrong. We always want to feel like we're doing good. I don't want to feel like I'm responsible for something. And that's really quite disempowering. Because if I'm not responsible for it, who is? These are my feelings. So I think the real key of adversity is to respect it and have deep respect for it. So much so that you call a friend, or you book a session for to go to your chiropractor. I don't know. You do something that changes your perspective and changes and allows you to see, and you don't distort the message and try to project it on another. When you start finding yourself saying, yes, but they did this to me, and if they wouldn't done this, I wouldn't have done that. If you're responding in a negative way because someone responds negative to you, you are responsible for your response. You can't be responsible for theirs, but you're responsible for your response. So your adversity is a powerful gift, not an easy gift. It's not fun, but it's not easy not to look at your stuff. It's less easy to keep that and not deal with it. It's less easy to live a life without looking at it. So even though we say it's not easy to look at adversity, what's the alternative? That's just how I see it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that just comes up for me is, as you were saying that, is just this whole thing around mistakes, right? And again, I think we're conditioned to think mistakes are bad. I think, mistakes, again, are where we grow. Whether it's our mistake or another person's mistake or everybody's mistake, the more we can be accepting and welcoming of that, that's where we're going to grow and move forward. Because if we can't be accepting, if we're in that place of resistance, we're holding ourselves back in that suffering. Yeah. Okay. Now, I need your help, you two. I don't know if we should do one more. I feel like we should actually do a message of like guidance from another deck and share our interpretations on it. So I was kind of leaning towards the Sacred Traveler deck.
Oh, I've never seen that deck before. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
This way we can give everybody a message, some guidance, your free little coaching for Monday morning, if you want to think of it that way. I like this deck. It's always got some great messages. So same thing, I'm going to cut and just take the top card on the bottom. Wise leader. What does it say? You are, I can't read backwards.
A beacon for others. You are
a beacon for others. Ooh, I love this. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful card. Sheila, you want to go first?
Wise leader is mistaken in our society, because if we look at some of the leaders that we have in our, the world leaders that we have, and some of the leaders of different organizations, or even if you're thinking about the boss at your job, we're in a world that doesn't necessarily promote wise leaders. We're in a world that promotes a lot of ego. And if you're listening to this message, I would say the opportunity for you to be a wise leader is powerful, because we're lacking wise leaders. And if you are in an organization and you have wisdom and you have grace and you have compassion and you have love and you are inspirational, and I believe all of us are that. And if you're willing to tap into that and inspire others, you're a wise leader. If you're wanting to make other people small, or you're using leadership as a response to your own ego, we've got enough of that in the world. You can look around and find that everywhere you go. I don't even have to give you examples. Every one of you has visions popping in your mind right now of these leaders that are not wise leaders. So if you have this skill, if you have this determination, if you have this desire to inspire others and offer the world something greater than, you're a wise leader and you're needed. There's so much need for you on the planet.
I love that. Thank you, Sheila. Tracy?
I think that there's sometimes a tendency to take the word leaders and take that role or that identity and to put those people onto a bit of a pedestal, right? There's a bit of a hierarchy when we talk about leadership. And I think that what this card is really talking about when the statement says you are a beacon, right, is that every single one of us, every single day has an invitation and an opportunity to be a leader within our own sphere of influence, right? Within our own orbit. And so it's not so much about that you have to have a certain education to be a leader, or that you have to hold a certain position or a certain status to be a leader, but it's about how can you step up and be in leadership in your own life, whether you are a coach or whether you are a mom or whether you are a businesswoman or whatever that looks like, right? There is always opportunity to lead, and it's leading by example, right? You are the beacon, you are the lighthouse. So it's the awareness and the understanding that everything that you do is leading the way, right? All of our choices are always leading the way, right? And so the biggest message then, because of that, is how are you choosing to lead? Right? What will you choose?
Yeah. I'm very similar. I think of, no hierarchy. We are all leaders, and it doesn't matter if you're 2, 10, 20, 90, male, female, whatever your job is. To me, it's, a wise leader. It's not about how much you know or how much you've experienced. It's, are you leading from fear or are you leading from love? Because those are the only two places you can lead from. And a wise leader will lead from love. And that's why kids are such great leaders, right? They're not already so conditioned and brainwashed. I mean, we, like I said, spent an hour or so with our grandson on the weekend, and I learned so much just watching him act, play in the yard and that sort of thing. So to me, a wise leader is, someone who is leading from love. And like Sheila said, I think the mistake we make is we look up to, whether it's political leaders or religious leaders, there's lots of, if you look at the hierarchy type leadership, and I think too many people allow or give their power to those leaders to determine their type of leadership. Whereas, no, you don't have to be like that, and you don't have to agree with it. But if you can just lead from love yourself, that is a great leader. And I'm just going to, that's just simple for me. Lead from love. That's a great leader. Yeah. I always love the cards. They have, just good conversations that come up. They stop and make us think about the stuff that we don't take the time to stop and think about sometimes. And when we can kind of, I think, open our perceptions to start our day, especially, I think we have the opportunity to have a much better experience of our day. Yeah. Any final words of wisdom from my two co-leaders here as to how people can be a good leader?
You summed it up really well, Kim. You're leading from love or you're leading from fear. And I don't know that we have to get into too much more of that, because I mean, everything that we talked about, if you're in adversity or if you're in the other challenges, you're not in love. So anytime you're in that discomfort, you're in fear. So bringing yourself into alignment and leading with the idea that we're all valuable and that we all deserve love.
I think too, for anybody who may be listening, who feels small or feels like they're not a leader or nobody, is going to look up to me. A simple, powerful leadership skill can be simply acknowledging someone with a smile, a stranger, right? Or holding a door open for someone. These small acts of kindness, that can be, to me, that is greater leadership than, some of the hierarchy type leadership that we see. A leader is someone who makes someone feel seen and heard and valued. So to just simply give someone a smile or pay them a compliment or just say hello, that's a great leader. So anybody and everybody is a leader and has the ability to be a great leader. So if you're feeling small or you think you don't matter, you do. You just have to choose to lead from love.
Beautiful. And you both summed it up so beautifully. I think the only thing that I would add, what's popping in my field, is actually during the opening ceremony of my last container called Sourced. What was channeled through as one of the messages for everybody was, we lead in light. We lead in light. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think that's a perfect note to end our call on today. So choose love, choose light. Everybody have a great day. Be a wise leader. And thank you for following us and joining us. Feel free to share the recordings, invite friends and family. Like I said, we've got some really exciting guests and some hot topics coming up. So there's some good stuff coming down the line. Thank you, Tracy and Sheila. It's so great to connect with you both as always. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Have a great week.